Now, oil trade has added a new dimension to the already strong India-Russia ties. Bilateral ties remain strong despite the sanctions against Russia and the ongoing West Asia tensions. In the next report, we tell you how Russian oil has transformed India's energy demand. Take a look.
The Ukraine war triggered a huge energy crisis in the West. Long dependent on cheap Russian fuel, Europe scrambled for alternatives. But Western sanctions on Russian fuel worked in India's favor. Within months, cheaper Russian oil began entering India. By the end of May 2023, Russia became the biggest oil supplier, displacing traditional West Asian suppliers like Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Currently, Russia accounts for over 35% of India's crude imports. This figure might even touch 45% in the coming months of 2024. In fact, Russia's monthly supply is all set to reach an all-time high. S&P Global Commodity Insights projects December supplies to be around 200,000 barrels per day. The imports continue to remain strong despite the Red Sea tensions disrupting global trade. But there may be some other factors that could impact the apple cart. They include a rise in oil supplies from West Asia, weather-related issues at Russian ports, heightened refinery maintenance, and increased scrutiny on ships carrying Russian oil. But all things said and done, Russia is here to stay a top oil supplier, braving the dynamic geopolitical shifts and the global economic uncertainties. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And for more on booming India-Russia oil trade, we're now being joined by Arina Sukuman, security and oil expert, also program vice chair in the Oil and Gas Subcommittee, live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Ms. Sukuman, of course, I want to start by asking you, what are some of the factors that can hinder India's oil trade with Russia?
Well, there are several different issues to be concerned about in that regard, which include the shrinking discounts for Russian crude oil arriving at Indian ports. Russia is trying to source more of non-G7 shipping capacity to sidestep the G7 price caps on its exports. Meanwhile, the medium sour crudes continue to strengthen globally because of OPEC plus production cuts. Essentially, discounts are essentially with the shrinking discounts, it is becoming less advantageous in terms of pricing. In the second half of 2023, we saw some of the demand for Russian crude slump in India, even though it still remains the leading exporter of oil to India. But there are other factors as well, which include sanctions scrutiny by US, UK, and the EU, which are tightening regulations and tightening compliance concerns. There is also reports of a dispute over payment methods, although India's government claimed that it is significantly less of a factor than the rising prices, which make it more advantageous to turn to Saudi Arabia and other and other providers. The pricing dispute is over whether the payments can be made. The payments for the oil can be made in rupees. Right now, the compromise solution for that is a combination of the Chinese yuan, Hong Kong dollar, and the UAE dirham, and it's a temporary solution that has not been fully resolved.
All right. In fact, I was just going to come to this. Do you see this Russia-led boost to India's oil import as a temporary phenomena then, or has this permanently altered India's energy basket?
Well, on Russia, from Russia's perspective, Asian countries remain top-notch destinations for oil because most likely, in terms of Europe, these caps are not going away anytime soon, and sanctions will remain in place for the foreseeable future. However, from India's perspective, the difference in payment is significant enough that the demand for Russian crude slumped as much as 47% in November, and as much as between 16 and 22% in December, which is quite significant. It is a significant reduction in oil being purchased, and there is a trend towards going towards other countries, other OPEC countries like Saudi Arabia. Most likely, if the compliance remains, is going to be tightened in the coming months, and all evidence of it exists that there's more efforts to crack down on these transports, India will likely be turning away from Russian oil and towards other options, especially since the price differential is no longer nearly as advantageous.
All right, now another variable perhaps to consider here would be the Venezuelan oil, which is all set to boost supply. Do you see that having an impact on India's oil trade with Russia?
Absolutely. The more diverse are the options, the less India will want to depend on any one source of oil, particularly if there are geopolitical factors at play, and particularly if that in itself could impact its relations with the economic relations with the West. Additionally, India is looking towards a deal with Guyana, which is also a significant oil producer, which could further impact the price differential as well.
All right. Well, Ms. Sukuman, thank you so much for joining us on World Business Watch with your insights on this.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.